a lot of people talk about like making it as a musician, and like, that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And for me, like that's the pinnacle. We were all there to like just kind of experience the same thing. Mm-hmm. And that's all I've ever wanted to do as a musician, was just like bring people together.
Hello and welcome to Where the Living Room Used to Be, a podcast about Rhode Island's music scene. Hey everyone, it's James. My guest for this episode is Chris Carrera. You may know him from numerous bands including Weak Teeth, Bloodpheasant, Deleted Arrows, and Yavinfive. In our conversation, he talks about DIY shows and punk matinees in Providence, his experience playing Weak Teeth's quote-unquote final show before his move to Denver, and why AS220 is a special place to him. I appreciate you all checking this out. Please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure to follow along on Facebook and Instagram at Living Room UTB for photos of show flyers and more from Chris's time in music. What was your introduction to music?
Well, my dad's a pianist.
Okay. Like what kind of piano is it?
Mostly like jazz and classical.
Okay.
So like I can remember like being a kid and just him practicing like Bach and Mozart pieces. Mm-hmm. And then, now, and like this is stuff that he's always done, but now like his job is, he lives down in Florida, and he's basically does background music for like different restaurants.
Oh, okay.
And so
he'll play live in the restaurant.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And it's not like super loud. It's just kind of like, instead of them putting on like a Spotify station or something, mm-hmm. like he just like sits there and plays piano for, 4, 5, 6 hours, whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, he, was always like, we had a piano in the house, and he was always playing. And like, he would always just get me to like count out music. Like when I was a kid, he'd always say it. Like one thing he always asked me was, "Where's the one?"
Yeah. Okay.
And if you find the one, you can at least know like where that progression starts. And yeah, like even like from when I was like 3 and 4 years old, like I can remember just like being like in my dad's car and like going to wherever, and us listening to like the jazz station, him saying, "Where's the one?" Not that I ever like got into theory too much, but like I can remember, just like having that sort of like thought process in my head about like finding music and like counting it and like just trying to follow along with it in like a certain way.
Yeah.
But like I never wanted to do what my dad did. Like when I was a kid, like everyone was always like, "Oh, like do you want to play piano like your dad?" And I was like, "No, I want to play guitar."
Okay.
And like I don't know why, because like he was never into rock music, mm-hmm. but for some reason I like discovered WBRU, mm-hmm. and I was always into like the rock stations. Yep. And for some reason like that always spoke more to me. Yeah. And I always wanted to be like a more like aggressive musician.
Yeah. Okay. Did your father take you to any concerts or shows like when you were younger?
Not really. So I don't remember who played specifically, but the first like live music I ever saw was one of like the BRU summer concert series.
Okay.
It was some terrible, like alt rock, mm-hmm. Band of the 2000s. But that was like the first like live music I ever saw, and then the first like proper like concert or show that I went to was the WBRU birthday bash, because 311 played.
Oh, nice.
And they were like my favorite band for like years and years and years.
Yeah.
I used to love 311. And to be fair, I'll still get down with like some of the early records. There's some like gnarly riffs on them.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So like BRU was a big part of
totally, yeah, because that was, at least.
And what year was this? What did
this was, or that show that I went to see 311 was 2001.
Okay.
So and it was at Lupo. So it was when they were huge, but they were still small enough of a band where like they only could play Lupos.
Yeah.
Or like Lupos was like the biggest venue that they could fill. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it wasn't like I went to this like giant arena or mm-hmm. anything. Which is kind of cool thinking about seeing a band like that in a venue as small as Lupos was.
Yeah.
All things considered.
Yeah. Yeah. When did you start playing guitar? Or was guitar your first instrument?
Yeah, guitar was my first instrument, pretty much my only instrument, unless you count bass. Mm-hmm. But I got my first guitar when I was 9.
Okay.
And I took lessons for like 2 years. Mm-hmm. And it was very boring. Like, I didn't love it as much as I thought. I always wanted to be like a rock star, and I always wanted to like write songs, but like the way I was taught was not very good. And then the guy who I was taking lessons with, he like had to take a summer off or something, so I stopped taking lessons. And when I stopped taking lessons, I stopped practicing, and then I just like put my guitar down, and I didn't touch it for like 2 years. And then it wasn't until I was like maybe 13, and a friend of mine was over, and he was like, "Oh, like you have a guitar? That's so cool." I was like, "Yeah, I don't know, like I haven't played in a while." He's like, "Oh, like just play me something." And I picked it up, and we were listening to the radio, and I don't remember what song it was, but I remember just like wasn't even paying attention. I just started plucking strings, and all of a sudden I was playing what was on the radio, like whatever song it was. And I was like, "Holy shit, I can like do this, I guess."
Yeah.
And that's what, and I was like, "Oh, maybe it's not so bad. Like maybe, like, maybe I can actually do what I want to do with this thing instead of just like learning string by string what these notes are.
Oh, okay.
I can actually like play a song."
You started to like teach yourself just from that.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Well, it seems like your, upbringing, just that subconsciousness of like listening to music, like a little bit more deeply, kind of
totally
trained you for that. So when you were 3 to, those 10 years till you were 13, that was kind of just running in the back of your head.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
And did you start a band around that time, or?
Yeah, so I started my first band when I was 14.
What was the name of that band?
That was called Upset Broke.
Okay.
That was my high school pop punk band.
Yeah.
And the kid who I was hanging out with that one time that was like, "You should pick up that guitar and play me a song," he ended up being in that band as well. He played bass.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just very much like, wanted to be Blink-182.
Okay.
Just your very stereotypical high school pop punk band.
Yeah. Where did you play shows?
We played at the living room a bunch, and we played at AS220 a whole lot of times. Like way back in the day, there used to be these Saturday matinees at AS220 called Musicality.
Okay.
I don't know who started it, how we got involved with it. Like all of a sudden, it was just a thing that we all did.
Yeah.
And like so the two other guys in my band, we were like the only like punk kids like in our grade at our school.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were some older kids who were in the punk scene, but like they were like too old and like didn't like we weren't cool enough to hang out with them.
Okay.
But we'd go to these Musicality things, and like that's where I ended up meeting like Mike and John and Neil from Weak Teeth. Yeah, like that's how I know those guys.
What band were they playing?
They were in a band called Gunshot Wound.
Okay.
And that band continued. I ended up joining Gunshot Wound when Keith moved away for college because they wanted to keep playing. And we were all in college at this point, and I was going to college with Mike at the time, and we would run into each other, and he was like, "Hey, like we're looking for, another guitar player because blah blah blah." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it. Like I've always liked you guys. Like I always thought you were a cool band."
Yeah.
And so I started playing with them, and then that eventually turned into Weak Teeth.
Yeah. Okay.
So like Weak Teeth has been together for a really long time, but like those three guys have been playing together since like 2001.
Wow. Okay.
So they like the three of them have been playing together for like almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. So that's Mike and John Pagano and Neil King.
Yes, correct. But yeah, so like going back to the Musicality, like we were all the same. We were all like 15 and 16 at the time.
Yeah.
And like everyone went to different schools, and like they weren't people that I hung out with, like outside of this little thing. Because like we didn't have cell phones, we could get in touch with each other any other way. But it was one of those things where it was like cool, like like the third Saturday of every month or whatever it was, like I'm gonna see all these people, and like we're gonna have this cool like we're gonna have this like show, and it's free, and we're just gonna go, and we're gonna like see what they've been doing, they're gonna see what we've been doing, and like everyone's gonna be there, and it's gonna be a blast. Like that's just like what we looked forward to.
Yeah. How many bands usually played? Was it typical like 3 or 4 bands? Or?
It was more. It was like 6 or 7, 8 maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, and it started early. It started at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And it would go until whenever.
Yep.
And it was just like this all day thing, and like a lot of the people that I ended up knowing like throughout high school and even into college, and people that like I still sort of keep in touch with now, I met originally through that.
Okay.
So like if it wasn't for that, like I don't know if I'd know the people that I know, or if I like ever would have done the things that I like did even back then. So that was like a huge turning point for me personally, like for my music career.
Yeah.
Was just playing these like weird, like Saturday punk bands.
What was the next band that you played with after that?
So after that, I started, or I was in Yavinfive, and that was when I was in college.
And what kind of band was that?
That was like a weird, just like early 2000s, can't make up its mind hardcore. Like it was kind of jazzy, it was kind of thrashy, it was just wacky guitar parts.
Yeah.
Just like a lot of time changes. I was like very into playing guitar at the time, and I was like, I'm going to put as much as I can do in this one song as possible.
Like as many notes as possible,
Yeah, and it wasn't like shreddy, like solo wise. It was just like, I'm going to put in like all these riffs, and it doesn't matter if they go together because like music is weird right now, and I don't care.
Yeah. Okay.
So I mean, I was listening to a lot of like Blood Brothers and Converge and Thrice and Poison the Well and whatever other bands were popular in like 2004 and 5.
Okay.
And it just, it was definitely like a musician's band, because like that, like Yavinfive would play shows and like no one would care. But then other bands that we play with would come up to us and be like, yo, you guys were sick.
Yeah.
You know, which was cool that like someone appreciated it.
Yeah.
But like the people who were just there to see the show were like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, what's happening?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that band stayed together for kind of a while. I mean, we played our last show in like 2009, maybe.
Okay.
And then we did like a reunion, quote unquote, show in like 2012, I think.
Mm-hmm.
For the Tor Johnson 10-year anniversary.
Yep.
And again, that was, I forget exactly what year that was, but that was like 2 or 3 years after we had like actually stopped playing.
Okay. And where were you doing shows with Yavinfive? Was it?
That was mostly at the living room because our bassist worked there.
Okay.
He was the door guy.
Yeah.
Joe Bernardo. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
He went on to work at the Met too.
Yeah.
So he he was always able to get us shows there.
Oh, cool.
Whether it was like a smaller show or a bigger show.
Mm-hmm.
But also for like that style of music, like that's kind of where everything was happening, was at the living room.
More of the hardcore-ish shows?
Yeah, because we had opened for Every Time I Die. We opened for An Albatross. We opened for ISIS once, which was really weird. We did not belong on that show. It's cool to say that I played with ISIS at the living room.
Yeah.
But again, did not belong there at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of the more like pseudo DIY, just kind of like wacky hardcore stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of that was happening at the living room.
Cool.
And that was also the time of like VFW hall shows.
Yep.
So like Paul DiCiccio and I, we booked a lot at the Providence Turners. I don't know if you ever went to a show there.
I never did. No.
But yeah, they would like rent out the basement to us for like $200.
Okay.
And we did a lot of shows there. And we also played at various, there was like the American Legion on Smith Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like that band was a very like specific venue band.
Okay.
Like we played at AS220 once, I think, or maybe twice. But at the time, AS220 was a very, I don't want to say different place, but it kind of catered to certain bands that we would not.
Yeah.
So like we didn't fit with a lot of like what was happening there.
Okay.
So we never played.
Yeah. What records did you do with them?
We put out one record in 2006.
Okay.
I think. And we had written a bunch of stuff after that never ended up getting recorded.
Okay.
And I still to this day would like to try to remember how to play those songs and record them, because just to like have that documentation of like what I've done.
I got you.
But I doubt it will ever happen.
Yeah.
Those are also just kind of, lost in the graveyard of songs.
Okay. And where had you been recording to this point? Where did you do the Yavinfive record?
The Yavinfive record we did at the Parlor.
Okay.
When they had a recording studio.
Yeah.
Like up
over
in
by Jam Stage, right? Was it there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's in the same building that Jam Stage.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I did a couple recordings there. We did the Yavinfive EP. We did the Jesus-centric LP there. and we did the first Weak Teeth 7-inch there as well. And again, that was just because we knew like Aaron from the living room, and I don't remember if he necessarily cut us a deal on recording there, but it was just kind of like, we know a guy who has a recording studio who can get us in like whenever we want.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was never, we never had to like contact anybody like outside of our circle. It was, we could talk to him in person at the bar that we knew he worked at, that we went to all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was just a very easy thing to like lock in,
What was the next band that you started?
After Yavinfive, I did Jesus Centric, but that was like all kind of happening at the same time.
Yeah. Okay.
So there was like Yavinfive, Jesus Centric, and Weak Teeth that were all kind of happening at once.
Okay. How did that come about? Was it just from that group of people from AS220 and?
Yeah, just like it was really just meeting people and wanting to do other like different projects and or like people wanting to start bands, and
they're like, we know Chris, he plays guitar, right?
Yeah, just kind of being like a guy that for some reason people wanted to be in bands with, and and it just kind of like snowballed from there, because Paul and I had become friends from when he owned Cathartic Records. Okay. And I started hanging out there like after school, and then this was like in high school. I met him, and then like once we kept in touch, and once I was in college and I started Yavinfive, and he booked us a lot. Like we played it at the record store a couple times, I think. And, he put out the Yavinfive EP. Mm-hmm. So he just became a guy that I was like, like a slightly older guy, like a few years older than I was, who like had been a part of something that I had wanted to be a part of. So he was someone that I like really looked up to, and I still look up to. Mm-hmm. He's just like my dude now. Whereas then he was like, it's like, whoa, like this guy owns a record store. He runs a record label. Yeah. And now it's like, oh yeah, it's fucking Paul. But yeah, just like, I can remember hanging out with him, and like he and I talking about starting a band, and somehow that's how Jesus Centric was born.
Yep. And who else was in Jesus Centric?
So Jesus Centric was Paul and I, and Derek Garforth, who later went on to be in Bloodpheasant with me. Mm-hmm. And then originally we had another guitarist, or a second guitarist. His name's Tim. He wasn't in the band for very long. He quit after a certain point, and we just kind of stayed on as a 3-piece. Okay. And we did that for a few years, and then I backed out just because I wasn't really having fun with it anymore. Okay. Which is weird to think about nowadays, but
that you weren't having fun playing music, is that what you're saying? Or
just like in that band in particular, like it was nothing like specific to them. It was just like my time in that band for me had kind of run its course. Okay. Like I felt like I couldn't really be like a productive member of that band, like as it was.
Yeah. Was it because you're also playing in other bands that overlapped and they took more?
Yeah, I mean, I was playing in other bands. I don't know if I wouldn't say they took more. They were taking up time. I just kind of found that like I wanted to do this thing as opposed to that thing.
I got you.
Yeah, that was the first and only band I think I ever quit, which was really hard.
Yeah.
Quitting a band sucks when it's like two of your best friends. Mm-hmm. But I mean, they stayed a band for a short while after I left, which was good. Mm-hmm. But yeah, then I just kind of kept going from there, and then Weak Teeth was kind of like the main thing for a really long time after that.
Yeah, can you talk about like how that started? I mean, I know you had said that you kind of filled in with the previous band, but when did the idea of Weak Teeth and that style of music start?
So yes, like I said before, I joined Gunshot Wound, and they were there were a bunch of songs that I just like learned. They were like their songs that they had written, and I just kind of came in and like threw my own flair and came up with some parts for certain parts of songs. But yeah, then we just kind of kept writing music from there, and then the more we wrote music, the more it started to change, and it kind of became a different band, and it kind of had been a different band like since I joined, just because it wasn't like we were doing two completely different things. So like I started and I learned the songs that they had written and played with their old guitar player, but then once we started writing new songs with me, it kind of took on a different life.
Yeah. Okay.
And like we all kind of like learned and grew together, and we like got into different bands together, and like had a more like wanted to expand the sound.
Okay. Then how was the decision made to start Weak Teeth? Like, do you remember that conversation or
kind of
the
sort
first
of
songs that you wrote with them? Like,
yeah, so at a certain point we all really got into a band called From Ashes Rise.
Okay.
Who were like a sort of a crust band, kind of sort of, but like more polished, like a crusty punk rock and roll kind of band. And we started getting more into like that style of songwriting. So at that point, like we had been, or like at 2009, we were playing all these songs that they had written, between 2001 and then.
Yeah.
And then we kind of wrote a few more songs like throughout that year, and then because we put out the Weak Teeth 7-inch in 2010. We recorded that January of 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So like somewhere within like the middle of 2009, we were like, this is, kind of sounds like a different band. This is like taking on a different shape and a different form. And, I think it might be time to like leave this name in the past, this old name in the past.
Yeah.
And kind of, let's try to grow into something new that's us and not like a weird like fracture of something that used to be.
Okay.
Because Gunshot Wound was this old band, and then I joined that. But then Weak Teeth is us.
The four of you.
Yeah, Weak Teeth is the four of us.
Yeah.
And that never changed, and it will never change.
These arms are satisfied with your ineffectual life. They want the honest hand, callousness and pride. My opportunity to work and defend, change from the inside. I will always try. In this life, we'll never own a home. Black eye, realize these downtrodden times. No matter what, how they victimize. Black eye, you can't make me feel worthless. I'm not perfect, but I have a purpose. Our lives, our visions, our hearts make all the difference. The she's red, and I'm the cannon. Black eye, our lives, our visions, through dread.
Being at the final Weak Teeth show was just a really special night for me as a fan. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what that was like for you?
It was that show was really emotional.
And where was that again?
That was at Aurora.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was just kind of like I decided to move to Denver, and and the guys were like, well, I guess we should like try to do like a quote unquote final show. Like we weren't breaking up or anything. It was just we're not going to be in the same place. Let's just kind of do this one thing. Like we called it the last one until the next one.
Yeah.
Which I think was very appropriate.
Yeah.
But yeah, we dropped the ball on booking it, and it ended up being like on a Wednesday night. And we were like, this is gonna suck. Like, it's Wednesday, like fucking no one's coming. And we had asked like, some like bands from out of town to come play, like just really good buddies of ours.
Yeah.
And I think we had like 150 people there.
Yeah.
Which was nuts. Like we did not expect that.
Yeah. Well, 150 people at a Providence show is
kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
Regardless of the
it's
band,
like a stadium show,
Yeah, the fact that many people came out to see one thing at one time is like kind of insane.
Yeah.
Because that never happens. But yeah, I mean, there's thankfully you can't see it in the video because a friend of ours filmed the whole thing, and it's on YouTube, which is really cool. But yeah, thankfully you can't see this. But like even during like the first chords that I started playing, I was just like I could feel the tears just like right in my in the back of my head.
Yeah.
And I was just like from the get go, I was like, this is like this could be it. You know, like we may never play another show again. But just like thinking about all the things that we've done with that band and things that we did together, like I can't imagine doing those things and like sharing those experiences with anybody else. And like all of that stuff just kind of like came flooding in like during that show. And just like the fact that there were that many people there to like share that with us, was just a very like unreal and humbling experience. You know, a lot of people talk about like making it as a musician and like, you know, that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And for me, like, that's the pinnacle, you know, like just playing a show, like with my best friends in front of a lot of people who are either other best friends or like people that I really care about. You know, we were all there to like, just kind of experience the same thing. And that's all I've ever wanted to do as a musician, was just like bring people together. And like just kind of create this sense of community and, you know, just do something awesome with people that you love.
Yeah. Well, before we move on from there, I mean, I'd love to talk just a little bit about the So You Ruined Your Life album as well. Like,
for me, it was just a matter of, you know, wanting to become a better musician and a better songwriter, and like how can I do that while still, you know, keeping people interested. And I guess, you know, keeping people interested is going to vary based on who's listening. Cause some people are going to be like, oh, there's way too much going on. Like I can't handle this. But then some people like, that's like, you know, and for me, like, that's kind of what I want. And that's kind of the music I was like listening to at the time. Like even like in the Yavinfive days, you know, like my whole, like I did most of the songwriting for that band, and my whole thing with that was like, again, not wanting to repeat parts. And if I did, having it be a little bit different, so it kind of kept you and me as the person playing the song keeps me excited about it too. And just and even just like listening to like, you know, certain types of like wacky hardcore bands who just like had a song that just like kept moving and never moved backwards. You know, it just kind of, it started and then it just kept going. And then, you know, by the time you've reached the end of the song, you're just like, whoa, like there was so much in that song. And they didn't touch anything twice. You know, everything had its place and it was played as much as it needed to be played, but then they just kept going. And it just kind of forces you to like, you know, see where else a progression can take you. You know, it's not just like, okay, we've got like these couple riffs and we're just going to bounce back and forth between them, you know, like, cause obviously you want to keep it in a similar key or you want it to have like the same kind of feel. So how can I take this thing that I've already written and how can I expand on that in a different way that's still tied to what it is right now? So it just kind of forces you to like think about music a little bit differently. And again, it really just comes down to like, what do you want to listen to? Cause I mean, there are bands that I've been in that, you know, I will put on the recording and I'm just like, oh, this is awful. But I'll put on Weak Teeth stuff, like if I'm feeling really nostalgic, and I'll like still be psyched. You know, like I try to forget that I had a part in writing those songs because I just want to like be a fan of it. You know, cause like that's the kind of stuff I want to listen to. And like if you can't listen to your own band, then like what's the point?
Dissolution.
how did Bloodpheasant start?
So Bloodpheasant started with Shannon and I, who she was kind of like the main person in Bloodpheasant. And when her and I were dating, I always like really wanted to like play music with like my girlfriend. Like not specifically her, just like in general, it's like a thing. Like as a musician, it's a thing I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And we started dating, and we talked about doing a band, and then we brought in Derek, who was in Bloodpheasant, or who was in Jesus Centric, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And then we asked Neil to play drums, and
Mm-hmm.
we brought him in, and we like Neil and I were doing Weak Teeth. Shannon had another band. Derek,
she's in Gertrude.
And she's in Gertrude Atherton, yeah.
Yeah.
And like Derek's a teacher, so he kind of has his priority, And like between the four of us, we were always like, this is going to be like a side project.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is just going to be something, like we'll write different kind of music and we'll have fun, and like, we'll play some shows every now and again. Maybe we'll record a record, like we're not going to take this too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the band that like really ended up taking off,
Mm-hmm.
which was very unexpected.
Okay. What was the response to Bloodpheasant? Was it like right from the start, like the first shows that you were doing, or was it once the record was out?
It was pretty instantaneous. People, for whatever reason, people just like really latched onto it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a very different band from anything that like I had ever been in, and I think that any of us had ever really been in, because it was, it was heavy, and it was just as intense as like other projects we had been in before, but it had this, this like emotional tinge to it. And, as we started writing music, we were like, or as we started writing more songs, we were like, this is really sad. Like, we just like want to make people cry.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually we did, which was kind of cool. But yeah, for whatever reason, I don't know why people like attach themselves to that band so much, or like what about it like people really liked.
Mm-hmm.
But we never expected like the response.
Yeah, I remember saying
that we got from that band.
Yeah, like Paste Magazine listed
Mm-hmm.
Bloodpheasant as like a band to watch.
Totally. And even like Mike Delahunty, who was, like I'm sure people on previous episodes have talked about him at length, just being like the king of Providence music,
Actually, no one has.
Really?
No.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
Well, for anyone at home, Mike D is the guy who, any band that I saw in high school, like at a bigger venue at like Lupo's or the Met or whoever, like it was because of him.
Yeah.
Like he's, the guy.
Who
brought in all those huge bands.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point he wrote like I think it was, I don't know if it was in the Phoenix or whatever sort of like local publication, but like one of our shows was like his top 5 shows to check out like this month.
Cool.
And we were like, whoa, that's weird. Like someone of his, and again, he was another person who like at the end of the day was just like a guy that we knew. He just happened to, have some pull within like the music scene.
Yeah.
And like the fact that we were on his radar was like totally insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of like that band just kind of snowballed, and we recorded a record, and then we did like a short like weekend tour, like just in support of the record.
Where did you do that record?
That one we recorded at a small studio called Lupine Sound with our friend Chris Devona, who was actually my replacement in Jesus Centric. Again, keeping it all very Providence and insular.
Yeah. And where was that?
This was somewhere in Pawtucket.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure it was in Pawtucket.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was kind of like learning how to, be a recording and be a studio engineer.
Yeah.
And I remember we gave him a ride home one night, and I was like, hey, so like, not that we care, but like, how much do you want for this? Like, just so we know.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I wasn't going to charge you guys. Like, this is just like me learning.
Wow. Okay.
And we were like, no. You're taking money from us.
Yeah.
So I think we ended up paying him like $100, like something like super cheap for a record.
Yeah.
But I mean, for him, he just was just learning. Like he wanted to just like study, mic placement and, mixing and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So we did that with him, and then Tor Johnson put out that record as well. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
For fueling my musical career in one way or another. But we did that record, and that one ended up selling out of a first pressing too, which was very weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that band, we just kind of kept touring more and more, and
yeah,
we never got too far with it. We never really toured past the Midwest, but we did go to Canada, which was really cool.
Cool.
And we had some pretty big stuff planned, which was, or seemingly anyway.
Yeah.
And I saw bigger stuff on the horizon for that band just because of what we had already done in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And then we broke up shortly after we recorded our second record. So obviously that momentum got killed too.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, like I think back to that band and just think about like how much we were able to do and how like little we like pushed for it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because like with Weak Teeth, it was like, okay, like we need to record and, then we need to go on tour so we can promote the record.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when we go on tour, we'll have money so we can print more shirts and then we can like pay for recording of the next album. And, it just kind of became like this cycle.
Yeah.
Whereas Bloodpheasant was like, we're just going to like do this thing and like, we're just going to like write some songs together.
Yeah.
And like, just like, we're just going to be a band.
Okay.
And then, again, it just kind of snowballed into like, okay, now we're doing like this 3-week tour and, we're opening for some bigger bands and, people are coming to see us and people are singing along. It was just a very surreal thing to like have a packed show at AS220 and like everyone singing along with us.
Yeah.
To like our song. Like, I don't think that's ever happened with like any other bands aside from Weak Teeth. But again, that wasn't until later.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just a very like surreal experience to be in that band. And just like all of a sudden there were like, 75 people in AS220 who were like singing along with us.
Yeah. And how long was Bloodpheasant around for? Like what years?
We started in 2012, and we played our last show at Revival Fest at Dusk in 2016.
And how did you connect with Deleted Arrows?
So I connected with Deleted Arrows because I bought an amp off of Brent at some sort of like, I think it was a Girls Rock sponsored like
Brent
gear
from
swap.
Cancer Conspiracy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think it was Hillary Jones who was like in charge of like keeping an eye on his amp because he wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I took it home and she was like, I'm going to let him get in touch with you for payment. And he, we met up and, and I paid him for the amp and we just kind of got to talking and he was, mentioned that he had this project that like wasn't really doing anything. And I was like, well, I could stand to be in another band. I was already in like 2 or 3 at the time. I was like, I'll do another one, whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, he and I started jamming and Brent's a really funny guy because he would, anyone who's listened to like Cancer Conspiracy or Deleted Arrows knows that like, those are like really intensively written songs. Like there's a lot going on with those.
Mm-hmm.
And Brent is just like the wackiest musician I've ever played with. That dude is just like on another planet in terms of like what he's able to do and write, from a musical standpoint. And he's just so like humble and he's like, yeah, like, so there's like this part and it's really stupid and it's like, and he would just show me like this gnarly riff and I'm like, whoa, like that's not easy or stupid.
Yeah.
Like you need to slow down, man. Like I can't keep up with that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just funny kind of seeing him just kind of like, be like, oh no, this thing is whatever. And I'm like, dude, that's sick. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm going to need a minute to like learn how to play that.
And who else was in that band with you?
So that band was Brent and I and Mike Veely, who had always been in Deleted Arrows.
Yeah.
And he was also in Sweet Thieves, like way back in the day. And then Dave, who was in Tinsel Teeth, ended up playing bass. So like Deleted Arrows kind of went through like their own like lineup change over the years. But when I was in it, it was always me, Brent, Mike, and Dave.
Yeah, okay.
And that was cool because, you know, with like Weak Teeth and Bloodpheasant and a lot of the other bands that I ended up being in, like at the same time as and after Deleted Arrows, we're all kind of with the same people.
Yeah.
And Deleted Arrows was like one of the first bands, or one of the only bands I was in at the time that was with like completely different people.
Yeah.
So it was cool to like, you know, play with different musicians and like, you know, have a different sense of playing and songwriting and
yeah.
And I mean, playing with Brent definitely made me a way better guitar player. Cause like at that point I had to keep up with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I needed to get better, because if I didn't get better, I wasn't going to be able to play those songs.
Yeah. Okay.
And because of that, and like, you know, playing with him made me, you know, able to add, you know, a new kind of layer to like other projects that I was writing for. And, yeah, I really miss playing with Deleted Arrows. That was a really fun time. That was a really fun band to play in. Those songs were awesome. Those guys are great. Cool. And I mean, it definitely like made me a better musician overall.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, Mike is nuts. I've never, you know, anytime I've seen him, I'm like, what the hell is he doing, man?
And yeah, like a left-handed drummer, kind of playing right hand, but like his ride cymbal is like way off to the right, like behind the floor tom.
Yeah.
But
like super complex and
totally. Yeah. Just very like linear style drumming, and
he's fantastic. Yeah.
He is absolutely fantastic.
What am I missing? Timecop Beach Party?
Oh, God, yeah. Timecop will forever be like one of the most fun bands I've ever been in.
Yeah, okay. What type of music was that?
That was, it was just like weird surf rock.
Mm-hmm.
Like surf rock with like a tinge of punk.
Yep.
You know, that was, you know, John from Weak Teeth and I, and our friend Dylan, who is just like one of the most phenomenal drummers, like, you will ever hear. I know you've seen him in various bands, I think. And he is just way too young to be as good as he is. It's kind of infuriating.
Yeah.
But we were just talking about like being in a band that like could potentially make money at doing something.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know like how or why we started talking about that, and you know how that transitioned into Timecop, because Timecop was not a band that could make money.
Yeah. I mean, thinking like we could play Ocean Mist and
like, yeah, and maybe like we'll do like an hour and a half set. We'll make a couple $100 or you know whatever the hell it was. And I mean, obviously we never did. I think, you know, any money that we made was like, cool, we made like $45 of the show, so like we can each take 15.
Yeah.
You know, it was just kind of like, because we didn't need to like make merch. I mean, we did make merch, but it wasn't like we needed to like have this like, we never needed to have like the band cash. You know what I mean? Like this like band pot where, you know, we put all the money in, and then it's like, cool, we got like a couple $100, like we can do a run of shirts.
Yeah.
We just kind of like sunk our own money into it, and like no one's gonna fucking buy this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a band where we could just be like weird and stupid and just have like really dumb ideas. You know, that, you know, ended up making it onto a tape that people ended up, you know, for some reason coming to see. And you know, when it was really funny when that band first started, you know, we told our friends about it, and we were like, yeah, it's like a surf rock band, and we're gonna like wear these costumes, and you know, there's like all these like skits that go along with it, and everyone's like, that's the fucking stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, you guys are like almost 30, like what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then, you know, they heard the record and they were like, okay, like this is kind of cool, like I think I get it. And then they came to the first show and they were like, okay, actually, you know what? That was awesome. So it was just this weird, like, you guys are idiots. this is actually
really was fun. Yeah.
And it was just, like every band that I'd ever been in had always had some sort of like message or like theme. And like the theme of this band was just like, let's just have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's just get people to dance and
That's cool.
like laugh for like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just like really silly and really fun. And, we could just kind of be like, we could kind of take on like this other persona.
Yeah, okay.
It's like, cause we're not like just these three guys. We're like this intergalactic like space force. And, we're like hunting down like these evil robots or whatever.
Yeah.
And we were just kind of like on like another plane with that whole thing. And it was just a lot of fun. And, we have been talking about writing another record and like we do want to play more shows.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's definitely a band that I like do not want to abandon like anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we'll do some more stuff, but remains to be seen.
Well, cool.
I guess one band that we can touch on a little bit is a band that I'm finally starting after a really long time. It's a band called the Giant Mouse of Minsk.
Yeah.
Which is a band that I was trying to get off the ground for like 8 or so years.
Oh, really?
It was just, stuff that I've been writing in my room.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of like stuff that like I had originally written for Bloodpheasant, but it didn't totally fit with that. So I just kind of kept it for its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like folk tinged post-metal, post-rock, whatever you want to call it. And it was just, again, stuff that like had never left my bedroom. And it was always kind of like I'll do this one day sort of band.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's another band that like doesn't really have a message. It's just a lot of songs or a lot of things that I wrote when I was just like really down on myself, just like lowest of the low. And like, that's kind of how I channeled my like sadness and depression and anxiety and stuff. And it's just like really kind of mind blowing that like it's actually about to see the light of day and like I'm going to play it in front of people that are not myself.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very excited about that.
Can you talk more about AS220 and, why it's so special to you?
So the first or one of the first shows, like real shows I ever booked, was at AS220 and, it was when Meredith was running the calendar.
Okay.
And I can remember promoting it as like, hey, like, please come out to the show because if it's good, then like she'll let me book more shows.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just kind of like please, like I could really do something here if you all just kind of like put in a little bit of effort this one time. And I think actually Cedros played that show.
Oh, really?
If I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the first show I ever booked at AS20 was a Cedros show.
Wow.
Which is cool. And, just having a venue where like kind of everything goes.
Yeah.
Like not really, but kind of.
Yeah.
It was just a very like inclusive, space where everyone was welcome.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like going to a show at like the Living Room or Lubo's or something where like if you didn't have the exact amount of money, you weren't getting it.
Yeah. Okay.
Where at AS220, if a show was $7 and you showed up with $4, they were going to let you in with $4. Because it was less about the money and just more about like the aspect of, community and like all of us coming together.
And exposing people to different kinds of art and music.
Exactly. It was just a way of saying like, it doesn't matter like who you are or what you have, like you're welcome here.
That's cool. Yeah.
Because it's not about the money. It's about like what you're creating. And, for me, it was always about doing something with your friends.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that AS220 always really promoted. It was, it was just very, it was a creative space. It was like, this is where you can do whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
And, if no one comes, like, it's still a space to do that.
Yeah.
And you can learn how to do that properly.
Nice. What would you say is your greatest music accomplishment? Like from, the records you've done to shows you've played or,
That's tough. I don't know. It's hard to pick just one thing. The fact that I've put any records out on vinyl is still pretty wild.
Yeah.
The fact that some of those records have sold out is crazy. Having people sing along, both friends and strangers to like, songs that we've written, being able to travel and, going to different parts of the country and being able to go up to Canada, all of that is, again, is stuff that I like dreamed of doing as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, you know, like realizing that it's a lot more attainable than, you know, I thought at one point.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, you just have to be willing to put in the work.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know, the fact that I'm, you know, in my 30s and I'm still able to do this is, you know, is everything, honestly. You know, the fact that people still care enough to come see what I'm doing. And again, they're not coming to see me, you know, specifically. They're just, you know, they care enough to be a part of something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's humbling to be a part of that thing. So yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of accomplishments, like the fact that I'm still able to do it is the biggest one. You know, I haven't had to, you know, give up and, you know, become an adult quite so much yet. You know, I can still kind of fuck off and go on tour and write records and, you know, buy guitars and travel and shit. Yeah, it's very cool that I'm still like physically able to do it, and B, you know, there's, you know, people have given me reason to continue to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I like don't take for granted. And I don't think anyone should take for granted. You know, because there are a lot of people who think that like just because their band went on tour once, you know, they're hot shit. And it's like, you got to do that. You know, like no one made you do that. You were given the opportunity to like travel with your friends and like do something awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I mean, I know you've spent enough time on the road to know that it's, you know, it's a chore at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, 8 years on the road or something like that. You know?
And it's something, and again, like, I mean, I don't know about you, but it's something I would never say that I had to go on tour. Like I would always say that I got to go on tour. You know? And I'm sure you would say the same.
Yeah, or it was like a different, like, I didn't have to, but there was that drive as a musician, like, I had to in that way. Like, I didn't feel comfortable not doing it, I guess. You know? Like, I'd have to be like, we need to go do this. Like, we need to go and play these shows. I know that we're going to be playing to 10 or 20 people in Ohio, but, like, I need to go do that.
Totally.
But, yeah, to your point, it wasn't, like, nobody was, like, forcing me to go on tour.
And, yeah, you know, exactly. It's like at the end of the day, it's just like a really good memory that you'll like always have.
Yeah, exactly. And that can never be taken away. I mean, that's
totally,
you know, yeah, something to be grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, nice, Chris. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. This is awesome.